Amitofo. Happy New Year to everyone. We start getting serious about the practice again. Hopefully, you had been using the time wisely and been practicing during this short break. We start with a bow and the four great vows. So please join palms, bow. The four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Today we're going to talk about the Paramitas. And I'm going to talk about the Paramitas not so much as the individual Paramitas, but as they are in terms of practices. Quite a bit is written about the Paramitas and how we practice it. I ran across in the Lankavatara Sutra a discussion about the Paramitas, which really paralleled a lot of what I've been telling you about the practice in and of itself. And I wanted to kind of concentrate on that because I think it's very, very important. And so that you can see things in this way. One of the members that of the Mind Work group had asked some questions about the Paramitas, and they were responded to by a well-known advisor, but they went this far, but there was still something missing, and I couldn't let that go by because of the importance of what was missing was quite important. And it's a matter of what I've been saying in terms of the Paramitas are not necessarily a practice. It's not something that we do to build a stairway to heaven. And what I mean by a stairway to heaven is that we just keep following these steps up and up and up and trying to perfect this a human being. And and this is very similar to the Confucianism in the perfect man or perfect human. It's not necessarily in that way as much as that's one way to practice. So you've heard me say that before, and you've also heard me say that, in fact, the Paramitas are simply a reflection of mind's own function and how it functions here. Now, this is very, very interesting because as soon as we get into that and we get into this issue as to then who, what, where is this mind and how does it do it? And the difficult part for us is because when we view things from the idea of samsara, we are missing a portion of it. We only go so far as the borders of samsara. So you could say here, where I have my hands on the screen, and say these are the borders of samsara, but it goes so far beyond that. You'd have to use your imagination to see how far my arms are stretching in this way. And there was, I remember in one sutra, I think actually the Lankavatara very early on, there is a comment that the Buddha could stretch his arms easily to these, I forgot how many yojanas it was, but I think it was 2 yojanas, but 2 yojanas would have been the equivalent of stretching out to the lengthwise of Taiwan, the island of Taiwan, that it was easy for the Buddha to stretch out that far. Here, maybe it goes out a foot and a half on each side. But beyond that, we don't know where that ends up at. We don't, because we're not capable of seeing outside this box or this border. This box or border is a projection, just as I am a projection on this screen here. But that which is projected upon is limitless. It's not easy for us to understand this, but it goes to the very aspect of investigation of mind, because the investigation of mind is not the investigation of consciousness. Investigation of consciousness only takes us to the borders here, how and why these things are appearing in our consciousness. But the consciousness of mind is infinite. And so is the practice of the Paramitas. There's no set place in which they're practiced, no set locale, nothing. The mind perfectly reflects that in everything that it does, and it's very mindful of this kind of a function. But it's not easy for us to understand that. It's not easy for us to go, okay, well, if we are constantly grasping for the Buddha, constantly grasping for the Buddha mind, and we're hoping that in some way the consciousness that is fabricated, that we call samsara, will deliver us an answer that shows us what mind is. But it cannot. It cannot do that simply because it's limited to the very fact that it is an appearance that is created by mind. And so it's limited to the borders of whatever that appearance is of the causes and conditions that bring it forth. Whereas mind has no such limitation as to causes and conditions, no such limitations as to the concept of an endpoint. This is something that the quantum physicists have looked at for quite a while, to look at things and to see them from a different viewpoint, so that we no longer see things in the idea of a perspective from a human being and saying, maybe time and space wrap around. Maybe they do these things. Maybe there is a series of universes all spiraling all together. We don't know that. We can't. But at least the quantum physicists are onto something, which is to release the mind from these blinders that are there and let it have the opportunity to expand out, even if within this limited amount of perspective, it is still pushing the borders out. And that's not bad. Our practice in practicing Chan is to essentially eradicate those borders. The way that the borders are eradicated is by letting mind simply seep into samsara, so that we are no longer blinded by the occurrences and the events and the forms that appear before us in samsara, but understand that those appearances are fundamentally empty, but empty in a different way than what we think. They're empty because they belong to mind. And by allowing mind to come in and permeate, and then essentially we are able to see how mind operates. But we have to relinquish the idea of an ego or a life and being or a personality. And if that is the case, then when we look at the three kinds of the Paramitas, then it begins to make sense. So the three kinds of the Paramitas is what I would call conventional or conceptual. The sutra calls it the mundane. Mundane is another word for conventional, just something that's here that we see or conceptual. So anything we see here is mundane. It's everyday. All right. So we have a cell phone. Okay, there's a cell phone. It's mundane. It is just something that appears in the samsaric world. Now, 200 years ago, if we showed a person a cell phone, assuming that it could get reception 200 years after that time period, people would think it was magic because they would not understand it. They would not understand how a person can appear. They would think a person was trapped in a little box. But the idea is that all of this is conceptual, and if we explain it, people can understand it. This is what well-known advisors do in terms of Buddhism, is we explain Buddhism, we explain how mind works. We present to you the matrix or the mind ground of mind and allow you to be able to practice that, to investigate it, to penetrate through. So we see form, but we're able to penetrate through the form to see the things as they are. I'm going through this whole part before I get into the sutra, simply to give you a fighting chance to understand what the sutra talks about. The Lankavatara Sutra, in terms of the chapters on the final instruction, are incredible. They are so beautiful and wide open. But I challenge you to go and read them. Read the final chapters of the Lankavatara Sutra. See if you can penetrate them. See what they do to you. As you push the book away and go, I don't understand this. I don't even want to understand this. I don't get it. Or do you go, I don't get it, but I want to know. There must be something here that's important, but I don't get it. Now, if you're a conventional person and you read the book and you go, oh, this is a bunch of baloney. It doesn't make any sense at all. It's like trying to explain Buddhism to somebody from a different faith. They have a very difficult time with it if they're in a very closed system. But if you begin to explain it to somebody that's trained at practicing this, such as a quantum physicist or someone, quantum mechanics person, they're trained to look at things from different ways. And so they're able to accept that and work on it and investigate it. This is what we do. We have to train ourselves to look at this and go, okay, even though it doesn't seem like it makes sense to us, there's something that makes sense here. And as you practice it, it makes incredible sense. But oftentimes we're too lazy. We'd rather just be spoon-fed the Dharma. Don't do anything bad. Be kind to people. Be generous. Get the right work. Whatever it is, you're just being spoon-fed it. And yes, you spill some. Oh, okay. And this is the way people practice. And they sit there and they wait for the monastics to tell them, how they should be. And they look at the monastics and hold them up to some high esteem. Master Ling Chi said, don't look at me and think I'm so great. Don't think that I can do it and you can't do it. Do it. And this is what I say to you. I don't come here and try to teach you in a way to say, oh, Gilbert, he's so good. No, I tell you, Gilbert has flaws. But at least he tries. And that's something maybe they can put on my I can't say a tombstone because I'm not going to have a tombstone, so I'll just have to write it on water. But, here floats by Gilbert, At least he tried. It's better than nothing, right? And you say, here goes lazy old man, farted more than he gave out wisdom. Is that what my epitaph wants to be or should be? How sad. At least he tried. And that's what I want you to do. I want you to try. I want you to work hard to try to be able to practice in a way in which you can penetrate through. You can see through these sutras. So let's get to the sutra now with that preface. And the person that he's talking to, as you recall in the Lankavatara Sutra, this is probably from the island of Sri Lanka, and therefore the Lanka part of it. And he's talking to the main proponent here is Mahamati, who is like a bodhisattva that's asking him questions on our behalf. So he has a lot of questions. And as he practices, he begins to hone in and really come to really fine tune his questions to these final questions that are there. And they're good. They're really, really good. So here we go. He says, Mahamati once more asked the Buddha, Bhagavan, according to what the Bhagavan has said, by carrying out the 6 Paramitas, one attains enlightenment. But which 6? So which 6 do get me there? Is it generosity, morality, practice? Which one is it? The Buddha told Mahamati, there are 3 kinds of paramitas: mundane, metaphysical, and transcendent. So these equate to what I've been telling you in terms of interpreting the sutras, where we say mundane. I talk about it in modern day parlance of basic cable. And I imagine the description of Lankavatara will last much longer than my basic cable analogy, because people will say, Daddy, what's basic cable? They go, I don't know. You'd have to ask your grandfather that. So that's mundane, everyday. Metaphysical. This is an interesting one then. So metaphysical is the something that we can't quite understand, but it's very, very deep and profound. This is what I equate to as the next level, which is wisdom, or the profound wisdom. And so as one begins to understand the sutras, we go from the mundane to this profoundness of the sutra, so that we can go through it. So we are able to, for instance, be able to penetrate the Heart Sutra and see the profoundness, the wisdom that's there in that sutra. And then the third one is transcendent. Transcendent is what I call esoteric, what is not written in words. Now, words belong to samsara. The esoteric belongs to mind. The only way to penetrate to the esoteric is to put down the samsara and to investigate mind. And in the process of investigating mind, the mind will absorb the investigator. And as in the same way as the magician is consumed by the tiger that he creates, because there is no magician, no tiger, no investigator. It is just simply absorbed in. And this transcendence is a transcendence that goes beyond the borders of samsara. We're no longer there, yet we are there and no longer there at the same time. How does this work? This is what we need to be able to understand. It is not easy for us to do that. But if we practice in the proper way, there will be this, what the sutras call self-absorption. And it's a very interesting way because the self is absorbed into mind, which then is seen clearly as the self nature of mind. But then that begs the question, who sees? Who sees the self nature of mind? And it isn't necessarily that it's a who, because this is the difficulty where we have to try to break through these borders. It isn't a who as in the mundane world of a who, of a personality, an ego, or a life and being. Even if it's a super mundane being, it's still an appearance. It is why the Diamond Sutra says that the Buddha cannot be known by his 32 marks. And they say, but that's the Buddha. That has to be the Buddha. And say, really? Or is that just an artist's rendition of what they believe the Buddha to look like based on what he was wearing 2,500 years ago? Is that really the Buddha? Is the Buddha really appear in this way? Even in the esoteric world, is that the Buddha? The esoteric world enables us to practice more. It is not a completeness there. It enables us to be able to penetrate through further into the practice of Chan. The practice of Chan is the investigation of mind. So we continue. Mahamati, as for the mundane paramitas, because those who are attached to the self and what belongs to the self cling to dualities, they carry out the paramita of charity in order to enjoy in the form, sound, smell, taste, touch of other states of existence. And they do so in the same regard for morality, forbearance, vigor, meditation, and wisdom, for the sake of the worldly powers and rebirth in the heavens of Brahma. And so here we're saying, essentially what he's saying here is they're doing this to build a stairway to heaven. You don't believe me? It's what he says, wisdom for the sake of worldly powers. Okay, we're going to go past the worldly powers. None of you need worldly powers, okay? This is not Marvel Comics Day. Or rebirth in the heavens of Brahma heaven. He's saying, this is mundane. You're building a stairway to heaven. This is mundane practice of the paramitas. You think I make this stuff up. I don't. It's right, well, beyond the pages of this book. Mahamati, as for the metaphysical paramitas, because Shravakas being sound hearers, those who hear the Dharma, Pratika Buddhas, and those are natural Buddhas without training, become attached to nirvana. They practice the 6 paramitas in order to enjoy the bliss of nirvana for themselves. So they're getting there, kind of like a Theravadan path of reaching nirvana and saying, I want to get there. I want to be able to warm my toes in the fire of nirvana, or relax and rest there. And so I will practice in this way. And the more I quiet my mind, the more I quiet my mind, the more I quiet my mind, I'm beyond the state of samsara. I'm in this bliss, this wonderful, wonderful bliss. Once I was at a retreat and I fell into this state of bliss that was absolutely incredible. It was so wonderful. Nothing in the world could describe this feeling of bliss, except for the fact that as I was practicing, it's as if Master Sheng showed up next to me, with his, with his hands on his hips, looking at me sternly. And I'm going, I'm here and I'm experiencing this bliss. This is wonderful, wonderful bliss. I want for nothing. I just want to stay in this wonderful bliss. But this is still, I sense a sense of self still here. There's something there, and that's contrary to what I have read and what Master Sheng has talked about no self. So I don't think that I've gotten to any important state. It's a state, and if you get into the bliss, that's fine. But don't start selling tickets for it, and taking people there. You're just going to be wasting their time. And people who have that experience and then want to try to share it with the others, that's very pitiable, because they really do not understand what this state is. But it's a state, you could call it a nirvana state. Yes, maybe no. It doesn't matter. It's just not where you want to stay. There's still a sense of self. And that's what is being said here. It's not all the way. It's not transcendent. It's not breaking through these barriers on the side. It's not getting out. Mahamati, as for transcendent paramitas, because those who realize that the projections to which they are attached are nothing but perceptions of their own mind, and that their own mind is thereby divided, they did not give rise to projections or become attached to the other states of existence. Now, I've got to go back through this again because it's really fancy, and you might have caught it on the first go round, but I kind of doubt it. So let's go back through. So he's saying that transcendent paramitas, transcendent means that there's something that is traversed. And what is traversed here is the holding on to the samsaric life and being of an ego or personality or a place, a dwelling that we're at, that this is the samsaric dwelling. So it transcends that. It transcends not only the dwelling place and the time that we're here, but that there is even someone who is traversing out. If I go this way and I keep going and going, there goes my arm, there goes my elbow. Did I really go? No, it's an illusion. I'm still here. Sorry. If I could just disappear, but I'm still here. It's an illusion. The ego, everything is still here. But if I look at it as it is, and I realize, hey, this is just a projection. It's a projection. It's not me. What you're watching is a projection on mind, created by mind. So we have to see it in this way. And so that's what he's saying, because those who realize that the projections to which they are attached, so these projections that we're attached to, you may see your face on the screen alongside mine. And do you attach to that? I want my head to be as big as Gilbert's. Okay, well, just make it bigger. It's okay. Are nothing but perceptions of their own mind. This is a perception of mine. All of these little bobblehead dolls that I see here, they're all projections of mind. What mind? Mind. It mutually belongs to mind, not to us. We are not collectively the Buddha. It is just Buddha without saying Buddha. Just that way. Because that too is a projection. and that their own mind is hereby divided. Oh, look, the mind divide. Look how many different Buddhas there are here. I don't know if you see what I'm seeing, but I'm seeing a grid of people. And I'm just saying, look, they're all little Buddhas that are there. All of these are divided, or apparently divided, pieces of mind. This is how we see things. So then when we see things, we see the Buddha everywhere we go. How could we not? They do not give rise to projections or become attached to other states of existence. So they don't give rise to projections or become attached to other states of existence. Well, the very first one was one that they just referenced, which is nirvana. They don't become attached to nirvana. That is a state of existence. That is not transcendent. It is an experience. Who is experiencing it is still there. Who is experiencing it is not real. On the transcendent side, it is seen in this way. It need not negate the bobblehead dolls. It just has to see through them to mind itself. This is the difference. This is our practice. We have to run against the current. As if all the fish are swimming downstream. We have to swim upstream. We have to go to the source. It's not easy because it's so easy for us just to turn around and just flow with everybody else and just bump into everybody else going the other way. But we have to apply the practice in the proper way, the right effort. Not bad, right? We set it on course to try to practice. The difference is that when we practice with right view, we know which way to go. The big key to all of this is anything that you practice, anything that you do, anything that you see that is dual is an illusion. It's not real. Anything you think that divides is an illusion. That's why they're saying, if you see that this mind is divided by these projections, that is transcendent. You are no longer there just looking at it and believing it to be in this way, that all of these divided bobblehead dolls are real. The mind that's there, which is indivisible, undivided, is different. It's immutable. That does not change. It's not easy for us to understand this. It's not easy for us to practice this, but we do. If we do, and if we practice in the proper way, you will find that you will make great progress, and the sutra will make sense. It will make sense. You'll go, oh my gosh, what happened? How did the sutra all of a sudden become clear? Where before I read it in the mundane way, and it sounds good, and even maybe in the way of profound wisdom, even better, right? We went from 720 DPI to 4K or 12K now. We're seeing clearer. Not bad. But you got to go to Buddha vision. You cannot believe how clear that is. And the other part was this other states of existence. So what are these other states of existence? Could be somebody who's practicing to go to the heaven realm. And then in the heaven realm, they feel complete until after a few kalpas, somebody sniffs you and says, what's that smell? And they go, I think I might be dying. And they don't realize that. They're ignorant because they haven't practiced enough for how long. But they thought that this was the final resting point, but it's not. It was still in samsara, still in the metaphysical. It's the transcendence that makes the difference. And also these other states of existence are pointing towards other religions and saying that these religions are still reaching, trying to reach for some state of existence, some altered state, some higher state. But reaching for these altered or higher states is still within samsara. It's not transcending. This is very, very important. And it's important for us not to fall into this trap. And it's easy for a Buddhist to fall into these traps to think, oh, they have reached some exalted state. Not letting their mind become attached to material appearances, they engage in transcendent practice of the paramitas of charity for the happiness of all beings. So here now it's changing. Rather than making the charity, oh, I gave money, it made me feel good, or made me look good, it made me look rich, or it made me do this, or I just feel good about giving, you know. Is not in this way. The dana, this generosity, this charity, does not think in this way. It just does. It does because it's a mirror of the mind. It is the paramita that's being mirrored down and showing in the samsaric world how one interacts with other sentient beings in this world. But the natural function of the mind, and showing in this way, the charity is there to illuminate the samsaric mind ground so that it can assist others in penetrating through. That's why it says the happiness is for all beings, not just for you, making you feel good that you gave some money. And then Sue, I see you're here. So I could not talk about this before because nobody would want to donate to you then, because they'd think, well, what good is that? I'm not going to get any credit for it. You all got credit for your donation. So thank you all on her behalf. Okay. I know that a lot of you gave very quickly and very much spontaneously. And that's what I thought was incredibly beautiful, because that truly reflects what we're practicing. I'm so happy to see that. Okay. And for those of you who haven't given, the lines are still open. There's still operators at hand, and you can still get through. I can't guarantee you're going to transcend, but at least you could reach the gates of heaven. Okay. Not giving rise to restrictions regarding the projections of objective conditions. This is a paramita of morality. So not giving rise to any restrictions regarding the projection of objective conditions. So when we deal with morality, we don't need to put a fig leaf on the statue. And that's what they're saying, giving rise to restrictions about morality, that we are in this way. If you remember the sutra of the child radiance, where he was walking around and he was nude, and they were all worried about him. And who was it? Was it the king? Percentage. Somebody wanted to put clothes on him because King Percentage wanted to put clothes on him because now he's starting to grow and he's getting a little older. When it was all right when he was like a little cherub baby, but now he's getting to be a teenager, and so he's getting embarrassed because this guy's walking around without clothes. But that belonged to King Percentage, not to the little boy. But he was saying, well, you still have to follow the functions here. So I don't tell you guys, just to prove a point, get naked and walk in front of your, the police station. I don't think that's going to go very well with you. But the thing is that what they're saying here is the morality does not belong to a censor. The morality belongs to wisdom. So it's wise to do certain things. We don't have to prove a point. That too belongs to the ego. But the thing is that the morality is not something that is dictated by human censorship. And that's what they're saying here, is that it comes from the heart, whatever is moral. And when they say kill them, or kill that, or do this, or do that, you have to say, no, that doesn't make any sense. You see the difference, how the Paramitas function differently from the point of the mind itself, because that's not a point. It is more. It's just the function of mind. Not giving rise to the projection of patience, while knowing what grasped and what is grasped. This is the paramita of forbearance. So here, we have a patience. We know why things are grasped onto and why other things are not grasped onto. We see those things clearly. We understand that if we hold on to something, like we're little kids when Christmas came around, and you go, I can hardly wait till Christmas. I want it to be Christmas, or I want it to be my birthday, or I want to do this, or I want to be out of school, and or if it was like me, I wanted to get out of the church. Sorry. But when I was a little boy, I swear I'd look back at the clock, which, by the way, in the Catholic Church I was taught was a serious sin to look back in church at the clock. If you saw, and I must confess, I was a serious sinner. And that clock used to always look like it was going backwards. And so in terms of that, there's no patience there, no understanding that these things were there. As I got older, then I realized, okay, it was like I had to go through that. And I had to understand that there had to be at least 2 circulations of the charity basket so that you could put money in. And you also had to hear the business report by the priest as to what they're doing with all that money, which at that point, coincidentally, never went back into the community. I think it went to the gilding of the statues or whatever, but I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm very jaded as being a Roman Catholic, and I feel guilty about it. That's the only thing I still have left of that. But in any case, there was no patience there. I didn't have patience. And anything we do where we grasp onto, we lose patience. The biggest patience is letting go of something. We just let go, whether it's something good or something bad. So right before COVID, I became very seriously ill. I had great pain every day. And the only way I could break it was by seeing through it and saying, this is impermanent. One day it will change. Even though it seems like it's unbearable, it isn't unbearable. I have to understand that it will change. And so in this way, I would meditate all day long. And there was a transcendence there in terms of not holding on to this idea of the pain. The pain was still there, but the suffering of the pain was not there because it was a proper reflection of the paramita of forbearance. Letting go, just letting go, letting go. I don't say that to you because I was so great to do that. I did that because out of sheer necessity, but it worked. It worked very well. And so it is this idea that we let go of these things. We let of anything that we cling to. When we cling to it, then we lack patience. And so when it's like listening to something that you go, oh, this is not good. This is, and you begin to lose your patience. Not giving rise to the projection of the practice while practicing with zeal during the 3 periods of the night. This is the paramita of vigor. So this is like saying, if you're going to practice all night, the 3 periods of the night, and you don't give in to, I'm sleepy, I'm tired, I'm this, you decided you're really going to work throughout the whole night, but the night to us can even be equated to our daytime and our slumber during the day. But when we don't, what it's saying, giving rise to projection of practice. So saying we're not thinking that we're practicing. We're just doing. It's different than if we're projecting and saying, I am working, I am sitting for this period. I know you guys have been sitting there in your meditation and going, I'm sitting here, and you start thinking, well, I've sat for 2 periods. 2 periods? And then all of a sudden your pain comes in and you go, I got to get up. I need to pee. I need to have water. I need to straighten my legs. And then you blow it because you gave rise to the projection of practice. You see how simple it is to come off a method. But imagine if you don't give rise to that. You don't give rise to the idea when you're meditating that you're practicing. That's the key. That's really the key. You can sit throughout the whole night. You just don't give rise to the idea that you're practicing. That's vigor, whatever you're doing. I remember there was a story of Goyen Fascia where he had a situation where he had an illuminating experience, and it was very similar to what Shifu had done, where Shifu had told Goyen Fascia to change the books from one room to another. And then when the Shifu came into the room, he said, you finished it. And Goyen Fascia said, what? And he was unaware of where he was in placing the final book there because he didn't give rise to the idea that he was doing the work at all. So he had the vigor to do that without having to think about it. But if you think about it and you go, I only have 2 more shelves left, I only have 10 more minutes of meditation left, you'll blow it. It's a projection. You see, this is very important. This is a paramitas without projection. It's looking through those projections. This is the mere surface of the mind reflecting the practice. In fact, where there is no practice, it is just the suchness of mind. Not bad. Not becoming attached to nirvana of Shravakas when projections cease. This is the paramita of meditation. So if all of a sudden the projections stop and you just go, oh, this is nirvana. And you go, oh, and so you just sit there when all these projections cease, there's nothing there, and you feel so quiet and comfortable. And you're just basking in this nirvana. Still something there. You still have a ways to go. So you have to be careful. You can't let the projection of projection ceasing stay in the mind, because that too is a projection. The nirvana is a projection. You've got to go beyond that. You don't pick this low-hanging fruit. You really have to stay at it. And examining the non-existence of the projections of one's mind with insight, without falling into dualities and transforming one's karmic body into an indestructible one, and reaching the realm of personal realization of the Buddha knowledge. This is the paramita of wisdom. So that's saying that if you don't fall into dualities, and when you're transforming one's karmic body, so the karmic body is all of you. Whatever you have here is a karmic body. The karmic body isn't just simply flesh and blood, bones. It is the situation around you. It is your thought patterns, your vexations, your desires, your practice. All of these things are there. And what he's saying is, when you're seeing things in this way, the pratika samappada appearing everywhere, when you see the pratika samappada there and not attached to it, you don't either attach to it or you don't eschew it, you don't push it away. You just simply are in suchness, where we'd say that there's not a you in the suchness, it is just simply the suchness of mind. This suchness of mind then is the paramita of wisdom. And it says, reaching the realm of personal realization of Buddha knowledge. Personal realization of Buddha knowledge. Very interesting, right? So it almost seems contradictory, because when we're saying that you're transforming your karmic body into an indestructible one, so the body, what is this indestructible body? Anybody know what he's talking about here? Nobody know what this indestructible body is? Yes, David.
Like the Dharmakaya?
Yeah, the Dharmakaya. It's the indestructible body. It's always there. It's immutable. Remember, I always use that term immutable, meaning it doesn't change. So when we go from this karmic body that's constantly changing, that's impermanent, and then essentially what we're doing is that we're transforming it. It really isn't a transformation. It is just simply the realization that it has always been this way. We don't give up one for the other. We just see it clearly. This body will continue, Gilbert will continue to go, and when this life is over, that karma will be exhausted, but it's never been exhausted or created because it belongs to mind anyway. It is part of the Dharma body. We see these things and we say, well, they're created or not created. We can't really say that because of the fact that it is all made of the fabric of mind. And then we get to and reaching the realm of personal realization of Buddha knowledge. So reaching the realm of personal realization of Buddha knowledge, of the knowing. But what is this personal realization? You see, it's very tricky. And the words, we have to be very careful how we express them, because can there be a personal realization of the Buddha body? And it is just like what Shifu said to me, when I said, oh, I see, it's like this. It's like a bike falling over if you put a stick in the spokes. And he says, yes, but it only falls over for you. That little mini Buddhette is still responsible for the salvation of all the others. This is the wisdom of the Buddha mind. It is in this way that it works. It's very interesting. You have to keep probing at this and and trying to get it. I will tell you that this is something that has layers and layers and layers of profoundness to it. As you begin to practice, and each time you take a layer off, there's still something there, still a hurdle, still an obstruction, still something that we look at and go, is this there or is it not there? How can it be there? And how does one penetrate through that? And you have to find the way to do it. There is a way to do it. There is a way to end the apparent contradiction of what appears to be in that one. This personal realization of Buddha knowledge is not inconsistent with Buddha Dharma and Buddha mind, but it appears to be that way, because if it's examined from the idea of samsara, it will look that way. And then I'll stop there because we ended up at the top of the hour. But you see how profound, how deep Buddha Dharma is, and you see the different layers of instruction, from the mundane to the metaphysical, to the transcendent. No, those, what I call the basic teachings, the profound teachings, and the esoteric teachings, which are beyond words and symbols. It is in this way. And if you read the sutras in this way, you will get to the esoteric. You'll be able to penetrate through the words that are on the page. I guarantee you. I guarantee you that this will happen. You just have to practice. If you want to take a crack at it, start on the final instructions of the Lankavatara Sutra. I'll probably be going over a few others of the of these chapters in the coming weeks, so you can kind of get a head up and start looking at them, and it will help you to understand. Don't think that you can understand it from the basic or the mundane. The mundane, you'll just go, this is interesting. But you want to challenge and challenge and challenge to try to penetrate further. Okay, thank you very much for listening to me today. And I'm going to open it up for questions. Amitofo. Harry, you were on my mind.
Hi, Gilbert.
Hey.
Just wanted to bring into the mix the Mahayana Awakening of Faith, which is based on the Lankavatara. So there's a chapter about the 6 Paramitas, and it's from the point of view of Bodhisattvas beginning on the first bhumi. And it says, through the Dharma of suchness, they profoundly understand what appears before them, since what they cultivate is free from characteristics. Then it continues, they conform to and practice Dharma Paramita because they know that the Dharma nature is intrinsically devoid of greed. So they're conforming. They're not trying to get anywhere. They're just realizing the nature of suchness and that everything fits into it. So this is really the transcendent level. And it's just coming at it from a different way. It goes through all the, it goes through all the paramitas like that.
Yeah, and this being the first bhumi, it's kind of building a foundation for the bhumis that come afterwards. And if you go back through now and look at the Lankavatara one and the bhumis that are in there, it will make it really, really clear how it works. So that's good. I mean, there's definitely a tie-in with that. And we have to remember that when it says the awakening of the faith in Mahayana, at the time when that was written, there was no Mahayana school. Mahayana meant mind. So it was awakening of the faith in mind. There was no school. It was just simply pointing to mind, and that's why that particular I don't know whether you'd call it a treatise. I don't think it's a sutra.
Yeah, it is called a treatise or a shastra.
Yeah, is very important, and it's this very beginning of Mahayana practice and Prajna Paramita practice. But yeah, it's a good tie-in. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anything, questions, comments, concerns? Michael.
Hearing you talk about nirvana, and it seems a bit as if the nirvana, when one reaches, comes from the Theravadan path, it doesn't correspond to the where we are headed on the Mahayana path, and as if there's in a way a transcendental nirvana, so which practiced in the Mahayana. Yeah, I wonder what you think about this.
It's interesting because we don't want to necessarily pick at Theravadan and then criticize that approach. It just simply, there is, although they've complained quite vehemently about Mahayana and how far they've gone, but I think the evolution of it is a natural progression in terms of that. And as you begin to understand the theories of them, you can see that there's this natural progression to Mahayana, whereas when we get to just simply nirvana, we go, okay, then what? Then we just sit in a lawn chair for eternity. And just take in the sun. Is that what it is? And Mahayana, when we look at this and this idea of nirvana, it takes on this dynamic way rather than a static way of just reaching somewhere and then what, right? Where Mahayana says you are now in the Buddha army, and you're going out there. And this is really the true salvation army, even though there's no one to save. We have a function, and the function is the Buddha mind. And so I think it takes it to another step beyond the Theravadan, the idea. And I don't necessarily think that Theravadan means to end there. There is an interest there, but it's just one that they accepted that role and they were pushed into that role by Mahayana depiction, and they were so upset, and they just went, well, I resemble that remark, and so they just kept it there. But we look at that and say, And that was purposely there. That was, Theravada and going, okay, you get to this nirvana, and then you think that that's it, but that's a projection of the mind. And so that's still within samsara. So it's interesting how Buddhism depicts these things. And when we see it from the theoretical viewpoint, it makes sense. It makes sense that it pushes further. The envelope gets pushed further, and we get into the Heart Sutra and the emptiness of everything that's there, and then the progression further to Buddha nature. All of these things are just further elaboration of what the Buddha taught. It isn't that the Buddha didn't teach this. It's just that people weren't picking it up. Okay, so yeah, thank you for your comment. Rong Chen. Amitabha.
But I don't understand the consciousness between the mundane world, the samsara world, and what you said, the infinite consciousness of the mind. I don't know how the mind how the mind's consciousness function in nirvana state, versus the consciousness. We have so much limitation in our ordinary life. Our consciousness has a lot of limitation. So it's not the same consciousness.
You were right. You want to say more? I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
I mean that it's a one word, but it's really in absolute sense. It's I don't know. This consciousness versus the mind's consciousness is not the same thing.
You see, Rong Chen is paying attention. This is very good. You've come so far from the first time I talked to you. It's very amazing. And you've come so far that you realize how far even more that you need to go is farther than when I first talked to you. It's just natural in that way when we see things, because when we begin to see it, we have this blessed ignorance of not knowing what we don't know. And then when you get to this stage, or the stage where you're at, you start realizing what you don't know is very great, which is good. Because it drives you to want to find out more. This, in fact, is this way where you really hit upon it, where you're saying this is a different consciousness. If you look at the Heart Sutra, if you remember, I've been talking about this quite a bit recently, where it said, when the great Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara was coursing through the deep Prajna Paramita, he perceived that all five skandha are empty. The skandha, form, sensation, perception, volition, and consciousness, but it's saying that Avalokitesvara perceived. It is not the same perception. It's not the same consciousness. It is the perception of mind that's being used, not the skandha, which have no foundation whatsoever. There's nothing that they can hold on to establish any kind of existence. But mind itself is mind. Remember, we talked about that. What is the substance of mind? Mind. What is the purpose of mind? Mind. That's Fa Yin. So very early Chinese chant. It's just mind. And when we see that, it is this consciousness. It is the consciousness of the five skandha is incapable of perceiving or realizing that consciousness of mind, that perception of mind. It's incapable of it because it is a fabric of mind. It's created by mind, but it cannot know how to do that. It's like there's a show on recently of Pinocchio. And the Pinocchio character, the wooden puppet, could not know how to create another one of him, much less create a more humanistic version of them, because it is fabricated. from samsara itself. But the mind has never been born, never created. It is where projections appear upon. It is great and infinite. The consciousness of a sentient being is incapable of that. That is why the Heart Sutra is so powerful, so incredibly powerful, because it turns the mind's eye inward. So you're exactly where you should be at right now. Now, just turn the mind's eye inward and use a perception of the mind to see. And then you will see the consciousness of a human sentient being to be impermanent, the human sentient being to be impermanent, its existence to be impermanent, but that what it's made of is immutable. It is mine. But a wooden puppet cannot understand this. It can't go beyond here. Even though I move my hand up, you should be able to see the strings that support this and move my head this way or that way. It's karmic. And when we see that, we see the strings attached to everything in the world. It's very, very amazing. The only thing that doesn't have a string is the Buddha mind, which you're using to ask the question. It's wonderful. Absolutely wonderful question. And you have to see this and start playing with the Heart Sutra. We miss so much of the Heart Sutra. What I talk about in the Heart Sutra is towards the transcendent. The Heart Sutra itself is profound wisdom of impermanence. But what I'm presenting to you is to look at it, to turn the mind's eye inward. That is the transcendence. Okay? Good job. Yeah. Any other questions? This is not easy stuff that we're working with. It's all right. Don't be worried. Don't say, I don't understand. I can't. Challenge yourself. Really challenge yourself to read and to study. Try to open it up and work on it. And you're going to read it and you have to just go back and to read it again. And you're going to read it and then go back. When I read the chapter, just one page of that, I probably read it somewhere between 15 to 20 times already. The first 5 yielded very little. It yielded me something that I know that was there, but it was the rest of it, the rest of the penetrating and hitting it and hitting and hitting it, and where I started seeing it. It's like tempered steel. You're just bang on it and bang on it and bang on it, and it gets harder and harder, firmer, able to make a sword that's able to cut through the illusion. And that's what you do with this practice, is you just keep banging away, and demanding an answer. And when you demand the answer, it will come to you. The Huato is not by accident just a Huato somebody made up to do things. It is because it is a sincere interest in resolving the question. It cannot be answered by words and phrases. So you say, who is dragging this corpse around, or who is reciting the Buddha's name? Who indeed? Who? How could you even come up with an answer to that? It is not answered in that way. Anybody else? Questions? Sam? And Tori, I'm waiting on you too. Hold on. She hasn't unmuted you yet.
Who is it that has a question? Could you raise your
Sam.
hand?
Hey, Gilbert, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. So if I may, really quick, I had a small moment the other day because I've been checking out the Dharma Drum podcast and the recordings of you from past years, and I had been checking out more Huataos and kind of letting go of my clinging to koans, but I had been reading a koan over and over again and struggling and confusing myself. And I went to go click on one of your podcasts. And funny enough, honest to God, I'll have to find which podcast it was. You actually talk about the specific koan. It's about the fox. So if I may, could I, just because I feel like it would be, if it's allowed, may I ask you, does a Buddha fall under the law of causation and effect, or does he not?
The Buddha is in harmony with the law of causation. Partika Samappada is not other than the Buddha mind. So it is natural in that way. You were talking about the fox story, right?
Yeah. Case 2 in Uman, the Gateless Gate.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it is just that. Because he's referring to a story in which a master was asked that question, and he said he was above karma or the law of causation. As a result, he had to spend a few hundred lifetimes as a fox. And so that's why I'm always careful. If you hear me every once in a while, I say I have to be careful lest I become a wild fox. And so I'm very, very mindful about what I say and mindful about the support of any particular Dharma that I'm presenting. It makes me feel a little concerned where I'm feeling, okay, do I have the backing or not? But it is this kind of a thing where we understand that this is very important, Sam, for you to understand that it is the Buddha mind, Partika Samappada. And you have to kind of see how that all laces together. And so when we see it in this way, this is the important aspect of that koan. It doesn't really have to do with the person making the mistake, but the seriousness of the mistake of misguiding others, but seeing clearly right view. This is right view. And that's the difference, where the other one leads one to practice in another way, or showing that the Buddha is some exalted being that is simply something that is unattainable. Whereas in the other, it is immediate and right to this moment that we see clearly that mind is just mind. And if you understand this very mind that you're using right now is mind, subject to the laws of karma, even though you're using the Buddha mind, it is in harmony with the laws of karma when it practices well. And if not, it's at its expense of what we do. So you see that very, very clearly. Okay, so that's good. I mean, you think that those things are by accident, but they're not really. They come up in very interesting ways. Were you the one that raised the question about the Paramitas, or was it somebody else from the Chicago group?
I think I asked about Prititya Sampata, which that's dependent origination, right?
Yeah, there was somebody from that had asked one of the leaders there. Do you remember, Michael? I forgot.
It may have been Frank, but I'm not sure.
I think it might have been Frank. Yeah. And I wanted to just mention something, because just to show you how this works is that after explaining that and kind of discussing paramitas on these, let's say, transcendent and metaphysical levels, rather than the staircase to heaven kind of a way of doing it, I was looking at it and going, I wonder, I need to find, I was walking out of my office, which I'm in now, and I walked out the door down the hallway, and I said, I need to find a sutra to support what I'm saying, because this is something very, very deep. But I need to have the support. So I went down the hallway, and this book was there, and I put my hand on it, and I go, oh, this is the Lankavatara Sutra. And I said, I need to find something on that. And I opened it up randomly, just opened it up. And the page that I opened it up to was right on point. how does that happen? You know, it was right on point. And this is not the first time that's happened. It's happened several times where I open up the book to exactly the reference point that I needed to get. And there's not a clear page in any sutra to explain what I needed to explain or to show support for what I had explained in the mind work group. That's how mind works. The mind is at harmony.
Oh, okay. I think I see what you mean there.
It is just this way. So you just let the mind be at harmony. There's no special power that I have to do that. It's just in harmony with everything. Very interesting.
Thank
Okay.
you, Gilbert. Amitabha.
Amitabha, you're welcome. Any last ones? Last questions? Nobody today? You guys all understood this? This is good stuff, but it's difficult, but it's good things, you know, and you all approach it at different levels, you know, whether it's Rochin or Harry or Sam, you know, you all have your ways of looking at it and trying to process it. And it's okay. They say there's 84 Dharma doors. 84,000 Dharma doors. Just pick one, just go. And then, you know, if that one closes in your face, pick another one. It's all right. But just the thing is, just keep trying to open the doors. Okay, David's coming back here.
I just wanted to ask a very quick question about the transcendent paramitas. I was reading this, it mentioned, and says that their own mind is thereby divided. Is this divided in terms of attachments or?
Yes, because you see it in that way. Let me see if I can find where that quote was. It was like right in a little bit above the middle, right? What paragraph was that on?
Last but one in that chapter, Gilbert.
Which one?
The last but one.
Last one?
The last but
There it is. Okay. Yeah, it says that are nothing but perceptions of their own mind, and that their own mind is thereby divided. They do not give rise to projections and become attached to states of existence. So essentially what it's saying is that they're realizing from the Pratika Samapada, it gives the appearance that there's several minds, that it's divided. And so all of these minds are independent, but it's not. When we see those all as projections of the mind, and that we see, that all of these different bobbleheads are using mind, even though it appears to be that they're divided, they're not. They're really just mind.
I see, okay.
They're just mind. But we as an illusory sentient being see it as divided. But when we see it as a projection, and we see all of these projections, these bobblehead dolls are using the Buddha mind. It's very, very interesting. I mean, you may run into a moment where you see everyone, every bobblehead doll having the Buddha mind. It's very incredible. It's very incredible to see that. And that happened to me in Jinsong in Taiwan at the great temple there. And I was looking out at a few thousand people, and that happened where I saw everyone there as Buddhas. And it was the most interesting thing, you know, because I was just smiling. I was so happy to see so many Buddhas in one place. Not bad. It doesn't mean that I'm special or I'm skilled or I'm anything. It just happened. It just happened. And because of that, I can tell you that what is being said there is correct. So hopefully people will, you know, misunderstand that either innocently or purposely. if you misunderstand it purposely, then your karma will be very bad. Okay. I guess that's it for today. Thank you very much for everybody staying on and listening. Again, this is really good stuff. You can see my enthusiasm for it because it is just this great interest in moving you along in the practice, and for you to listen to this. I hope that you become inspired to really try hard and to bring others to the practice, bring others to this Zoom training, because it's really valuable. So I'm so happy to see you all. I'm glad that you made it through the holidays, and we will practice hard. Okay, Amitofo.